probably not coffee, tea or wine or whatever it is that you are drinking. Some of you may be eating. We are officially live on all of our social channels. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you. So we're halfway done. Major announcements within the 10K project. Thank you, Ollie. While we're waiting, don't forget to put your city and state in the chat. And tell me in the chat, why do you think building wealth is so complicated? Or seems so complicated? And have a little bit of engagement tonight. You all know how I am. I love to see people's responses. So the question is, why do we believe building wealth is so complicated?
And Talisha is in the group waiting to come in.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just, Talisha, click one thing here.
Waiting to come in.
And I'll come and get you.
Hello.
Hello, Talisha.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Thanks for coming to get me.
You're welcome. Thank Tawana for letting me know you were out there. So
I still have that bad link. I don't know. It just keeps telling me invalid ID every time I hit it. I always try it just because I'm confident. Like, yes, today.
Today it may be. Well,
Right,
you know, we're gonna have to figure out how to get that fixed up for you. So are you gonna get into Facebook?
Yes, I can.
And I'm in the main.
You're in the main one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Talisha, if you're able to get into the members one, I'm on YouTube right now. And we're going to get started. So hello, family. Welcome to the 10K Project. This is our weekly conversation. We talk all about Black wealth and Black money here. So what I'm going to do is share a couple of announcements with you. If you're new to us, welcome. Tell you a little bit about who we are. If you're new to us, also ask you to put your city and state in the chat so we can recognize you. We have some people watching on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope right now. So, you know, want to say hello to everybody and thank everyone for being here this evening. The topic of the evening is building wealth is less complicated than you think. And probably should have put a question mark behind it when I came up with that topic. But I think it was our virtual admin who is a younger woman from Jamaica who gave me that title to have for today's session. So I want to say a big shout out to Charmaine for coming up with that for us. And we are going to do a continuation of the article by Camari Ellis called The Guide to Black Wealth. Because we didn't finish it the first time we did it. I should have linked it so that you all could hear the first session that we had, but it was the reducing personal financial strategies to reduce the wealth gap that we did, I don't know, probably about 6 weeks ago now. So anyway, you all can go to our YouTube page in order to find that Black 10K Project. We're on all social media there. So before I do that though, what is the 10K Project? Well, it's very simple. We are a group of Black individuals who come together to talk about Black wealth, Black money building. And there was a study that Eric Spence, one of our co-founders, brought to our attention that said that it takes 3.5% of a community to effect social change. And this was a study that was done that looked at major changes that were done in different countries. Well, we personally believe that 3.5% of Black America focused on Black economics can change the Black community as well. So that's 1.3 million of us. So we're looking at how do we increase our income? How do we take advantage of the tax code? How do we build generational wealth? How do we start and grow our own businesses? All of those things is what we are looking at right now. We have a calendar of events on our website. It's the10kproject.com. Some of our events are public, like this one, and others are members only. Membership is just $100 for a lifetime membership. And for example, tomorrow night, we have a woman coming in named Jamie Reed, who is coming to talk with our business owners about using your data. Using your data in order to start and grow your business, whether you have your own data or whether you're using someone else's data. I also, for people who are interested in real estate, so I had a client about 3 years ago that took my business plan, got $400,000 from the bank. She was a real estate professional investor. She's told me that she has grown her portfolio to 2.2 million or something like that. I said, you got to come and speak to my people about how you've done it. Over 200 properties under management. Are you interested in hearing from her? Yes or no in the chat. Is that somebody you'd be interested in hearing from? I see yes, absolutely. Good. She is coming. I'm settling on a date with her. She immediately came back to me and said yes. So she is coming. I will say this, she's not Black, but we don't care. We want to hear it from success stories from people like her as well, because some of you are going to be blessed. So it's Percy saying we don't care. So we see green. Absolutely. I let her know, we're Black, but hey, will you come? Would you do this for me? And she emailed me back right away and said, absolutely. So yes. So those are the types, if you are interested in membership, those are the types of everyday people, yet they're powerhouses. You would pass them in Walmart, Target, not even know who they are, yet they're doing some amazing things behind the scene. Another thing that we have going on, we did a few months ago, one of our first webinars for members only was our family bank webinar. This family, Black family, started off with $25 per month per member. Now they have 7 figures in assets in cash in the bank. You would never know who they are walking past them. Yet it was over 90 minutes of just some of the greatest things. They took us from start to finish about how they did it, how they dealt with family members that, wanted to borrow money from the family bank and, and didn't put anything in, and, how they educated their family and all sorts of stuff. So again, if you're a member, you get access to information like this, and you also will get access to the replays as well. So Tanya's saying whoever could teach us the rules of the game. Well, that's who we're bringing to the table. But every once in a while, we will have the higher level people come in. However, we're really focused on those everyday people that can give you the practical steps that they have done in order to reach multi-million-dollar status. So I can't say enough that, if you want to be a part of the 10K Project, we'd love to have you, the10kproject.com. The third thing, the SEC. So if you're new to the 10K Project, our ultimate goal is to do something called equity crowdfunding. All that is a group of people put money together into what they call a pot, I guess, in order to reach some sort of mission. So we've seen crowdfunding with GoFundMe, for example, where somebody needs books for school, whole bunch of people get together, put in small dollars in order to fund that person's dreams. Well, there's something called equity crowdfunding, where a group of people can come together, look listen to a business pitch from an entrepreneur, and each individual person can decide, yes, I like that business. I want to participate in that. I want to have partial ownership or purchase stock in that private company, or no, this is not right for me. So equity crowdfunding is regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA. So you have to put in 2 applications. You have to get fingerprinted. You have to, Tawana and I are going to have to do an interview with the government in order to go through this. We are halfway done through the process. The SEC, they don't really approve you per our lawyer. They give you like a check mark, you can proceed forward, is the way that she explained it to us. But we have received that green light to proceed forward and to go through the FINRA application process. So we are so excited. If you want to be a part of that, you want to be on the VIP list in order to get notifications about how we're going through that process, you'll want to be a member, the10kproject.com. We have to say we cannot guarantee that we're going to be approved. By law, our attorney has said, look, y'all have to be honest with people. So we don't want to misrepresent ourselves. But the attorney that we've hired has helped other people and other groups get approval. And, she's working with us. We're working with her. We're giving her everything she needs. We're communicating with her multiple times a week. And, we are just going through the process right now. So, Tawana, did I need to add anything else to that explanation before I move forward? Tawana? Oh, she must not be able to hear me. Okay. The final thing is, you're off.
Yeah, I think I froze a minute. I thought you guys did, but then I was the only one still moving. I think I'm the problem here. No, you didn't leave anything out, Sherry.
Okay. The final thing that I have before we go into tonight's conversation is actually a poll for everybody. So we are, I'm going to launch the poll here. Okay, so here's the deal. If you're not in Zoom, I'm so sorry, you want to get into Zoom some sort of way in order to participate in this poll. But we are planning on doing a family bank challenge. It's going to start on November 2nd. I've been working with the team feverishly on it. When I tell you it's going to be awesome, I showed it to a friend of mine earlier today, what we were putting together. And she's like, y'all are doing all of this? And she's already a member of the 10K project, but I kind of felt like she was going to open up her purse again and give us another $100. So I do want to say everyone who is a part of the 10K project, you're grandfathered in. But we are going to be doing a family bank challenge so that people over the course of the holidays, it's going to be an 8-week challenge. People are over the course of the holidays and the beginning of 2021 can get your family bank set up. So I have 2 questions in the poll here that I'm hoping that all of you will answer for me. Number 1 is, do you think the average Black wealth builder, we're talking about somebody who does care about building their wealth, will know what a family bank is? And number 2, if you were scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, because we're going to be doing some advertising on this, what are you more likely to stop for? A family bank challenge or a family wealth challenge? So I'm going to leave that poll open for another, it says here, 1 minute, 30 seconds. So you want to get your votes in right away. That's going to help us tremendously know how to name the challenge so that we can get more people like you into 10K. So with that, Tawana, Talisha, did you have any other announcements, things that people should consider, think about?
Nope, I think that was it.
Okay, Eric. Hey, Eric.
Hey, y'all. Sorry, I had some internet difficulties.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any other announcements for people?
No, I don't.
Okay, perfect. All righty then, everybody. So thank you so much for participating in the poll as well. I'm going to shut it, it's actually going to shut down in the next 20 seconds. So, all righty then. So let's get started with the article for the evening. The topic of the evening is building wealth is less complicated than we think. And y'all can let me know if, and I just shared the results of the poll as well. So y'all can let me know, is it big enough? Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All righty then. So in the beginning of this article, Camari is talking about, you know, the net worth of the Black family versus the white family, right? It's usually, these numbers are pretty old, but it's usually, we have 10 times less net worth than a white household. The other thing, this is something that Talisha and I talked about 2 months ago, is that 2/3 of white household net worth is wrapped up in what? And what asset do they have? I'm going to open up the chat again. Does anyone remember? 2/3 of the average white household's net worth is in their, does anyone know? In their property, in their real estate, in their home. Exactly, in their home. So if we have homes that are, let's say $300,000, right? I don't, you know, we live all over the country. But let's say we have a $300,000 house and we have a 30-year mortgage and we paid off that mortgage and left that house to our kids. Could that close the wealth gap? Could that close the wealth gap?
If we all did it, is what you're asking?
If we all did it.
We all did it.
Some people are saying yes, some people are saying no, some people are saying definitely would help. I think we'd be 2/3 of the way there, right? If we're saying that the average white family has a net worth of, right here, let's say it's 170,000, because right now it's 170,000. If we have a $300,000 house that's paid off, let's say we don't have any cash or anything like that, we just have this house that's paid off, I believe we would be 2/3 of the way to closing the wealth gap within our own families. So people were saying that's a great start. Yeah. So I personally believe we have to start with knowing the numbers. What are we trying to hit? And then also understanding the makeup of their wealth. So if we have a paid off house and a little bit of cash in the bank, technically that is closing the wealth gap, at least for your family, at least in my opinion. Y'all can, I'm going to open up the floor here. I see a lot of comments in the chat. I love it. So I'm going to be reading while you all are talking. Somebody, Shannon, saying, you couldn't tell me a thing if I didn't have a mortgage. My family would be rich. I'm telling you, a lot of people spend so much money on their housing costs.
So Shannon's comment actually put a thought in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Are we buying homes? So for those of us who have mortgages, right? Because Shannon's comment was if she didn't have her mortgage, she'd be rich. So in Shannon's case, did she get more house than she needed? Right? Do we have a tendency as a people to do that? You know, to keep up appearances in some situations, or because we like a lot of, you know, fancy things or luxury, do we buy more than we need? And is that part of the issue?
I think it's twofold. I think there's a difference between eligibility and affordability. Just because you're eligible for a house doesn't mean you can afford that house. And that's where you are taking on the responsibility that may or may not be viable for you. And secondarily, again, where is that house? My parents own a very large house in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which would be very different than if they bought that house. I always tell my mother, if she would transport her 7-bedroom house to Virginia, it would be well in the millions. But in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, it is not. So we have, again, redlining in our own, where we buy our homes they're considered poor neighborhood. We're getting less appraisals on them. Just the values of those homes and the communities in which we live may not even still be the viability if that house was somewhere else, or just even in a different location in that same city. So I think there's variables that cause the discrepancy in home ownership, just because, we just have to layer these things together. It's not just like, oh, did you buy a $300,000 house? Great. But is your mortgage okay? How do you plan on paying that? How long are you paying that? Exactly how much did you pay for it? Because if you buy it at $300,000, you're probably paying way much more than that. Right. And then again, the insurance, your appraisals, all those things that kind of go into that. I'm not a homeowner, so I know that a lot of people are like, oh, I purposely don't choose to be a homeowner for those purposes. But I think that's where there are issues that lie in home ownership that I think we don't talk about, that really can impact both positive and negatively how we can close that wealth gap, and how that house can actually be a liability as well as it could be an asset to you, depending on how you're working through it.
Yeah. I mean, even something as simple as the 30-year mortgage versus the 15, right? The 30 looks very appealing to people because it allows the payment to be lower, right? Because it's spread over a longer period of time. But then what you don't always think about is that's also interest for a longer period of time. So really the 15-year mortgage is a better deal, but so many of us don't take that option. It goes back to what I saw a lot of scrolling, that education, right? I saw that like a couple of times, or actually numerous times on the chat. It goes back to education and really understanding what are the parameters that build wealth, and knowing that early, right? Before you start getting into debt, they give you your first credit card as a freshman in college. You may even get it before then in some situations, right? But you don't learn about how to build wealth, or even how to manage the debt you're getting ready to incur wisely. It's like we just don't have all the rules before we start playing the game.
Yeah, and I mean, somebody mentioned it in here as well. Just paying, every other week instead of paying once a month can make a big difference as well. So when you understand
Some people don't let you do that.
I'm sorry?
I said some companies purposely don't let you do that.
Right. Some companies don't let you do that, but a lot of banks will. So it is about understanding the rules. It is about understanding what you've signed up for within, if you have not, purchased a home yet, what you're looking for within that paperwork or within those terms. The difference of your credit score being one thing versus another thing, the difference of your down payment being one thing versus another, can swing the amount of interest you're paying by tens of thousands of dollars over the life of the house. But even if you're already in your mortgage, let's say you've already signed your mortgage, right? I still believe that there are ways for your family, meaning your nucleus family, right? Your nuclear family, sorry, to close the wealth gap within your household, at least 2/3 of it, just by paying off your house. Even if you're saying over 30 years, we're going to do it. Let's say you just signed the paperwork yesterday. No matter what, we're not going to refinance this house. We're not going to do a whole bunch of crazy stuff. We're just going to focus on paying off this house and being good stewards of it.
Can I say one thing about this that I
Sure.
do? I think this is probably, like, at least for me, I begin to kind of factor this into the equation. And it's something I remember Dave Ramsey, I'm sure everyone's familiar with Dave Ramsey, personal finance coach, guru, I guess you would say. And that is one of the things he said. I remember he said, paid off houses, there's a 100% chance that paid off houses don't get foreclosed on. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And
well, not 100%, because if you're late on your taxes long enough, but that's the only reason.
Right. So so that is a caveat to it.
Yes.
You do have your personal property taxes. So let's just say that. That's right. But I do say that when in the sense of, and kind of to Shannon's point, if you didn't have that amount, if your house was paid off and you didn't have to contribute that amount to your, to your mortgage or to your rent, what then could that money be diverted to? Could it be sent directly into different investments and that sort of thing? So I guess I look at it in the sense of that long term, because most of the time, no matter what age you're going to be at, you're going to, if you don't have a paid off house, you're going to be, Percy, I like that. Percy put Bitcoin, which I'm a champion at. But
that's not investment advice, everybody.
Right.
Not investment advice.
Yeah, that's just me. That's my personal. That's just it. But I will say that most of the time you will have a certain allocation that you will need for your living, like for your living costs. So it's just interesting, I think, when you look at it long term of that and being able to just eliminate that kind of expense in your future, what that does for you then in your future once you don't have that expense there. I guess that's more so what I'm thinking about. And I think probably that's kind of what, maybe what Shannon was talking about, similar to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can personally say that my father paid off his house before he retired. He had a paid off house, he had a paid off vehicle, and he had a little bit of money in his retirement. And I saw his life and his lifestyle. He was never much of an overspender in life, but he had a nice, modest house, And the fact that he was 60 something years old, he was able to retire. My father played the organ, so he was a gospel musician. But he would, he had a little bit of money coming in from playing his gospel music, and he was pretty much set, He was in decent health until the last couple of years of his life, so he didn't have crazy medical bills or anything like that. But I do think when we talk about building wealth is less complicated than you think, it is about putting certain pieces in place where if you don't have a lot of personal debt, or let's say any, right? The whole Dave Ramsey thing. If your house is paid off, if you have a little bit of money in the bank, and you have maybe a couple of streams of income, whether it's a couple of rental homes, or you have you're freelancing for somebody, or a couple of different people. Let's say you're a great graphic designer, something where you could be 70, 80 years old and you're still able to do that thing. I think it gives you options. I do.
I agree.
I think there's an interesting, again, I have a college-bound student. So I talk to a lot of parents who, have freshmen or even, somebody who's just left the nest. And one of the interesting conversations that we had last week was called leveraging liabilities. And the interesting part was that many people were buying properties where their children were going to school and using that for getting in-state tuition, first and foremost, to impact the child, because their child now is a resident in that place, but also letting their child live there and have roommates, again, paying off the mortgage. So in a 4-year, 5-year period, they have a house somewhere that somebody literally lived in. And now they either sell it to the university or use it as a rental property. But the issue was, again, the topic was leveraging the liability. It is a liability to have a house, but you're leveraging it to make it affordable for you or to do something. And I never thought about that concept until she's like, I've done it 3 times with 3 different children.
Really?
So her children have gone to different states, schools, and she purposely buys property wherever they are. They start to look, right? She said during their junior year, she starts to look at these houses or little complexes to buy, and they buy them, let their children stay there. And she's like, that's the gig, is that they have to stay in school. This is how they pay some of their, room and board, all of that. And they get roommates automatically. And then they use that. And one of the properties she actually said was the institution came to her because they were buying that block. So her home was actually purchased by the university, because that they just, they were taking everything, and they were like, yeah, it's privately owned. But then they were like, yeah, we'll give you a whole bunch more money if you just give it to us. And she gave it to them. So she was like, she got out of that one. She still has 2 more. And I'd never heard of that concept. That was brand new to me. But I
That is
think
absolutely amazing. I mean,
That is
that's a
brilliant.
great idea.
Yeah, it
Yes.
really is.
Goes back to she's put herself in the position to be able to buy these homes.
Oh yes,
So
that's
you have to go back to
that's what my first question was. I'm like, where did you get this money to buy
Right.
some homes?
How do you get in
different places?
position?
'Cause
Right?
you
How do
gotta
you
live somewhere.
maintain the credit score so that someone will give you like we have to take this all the way back to the beginning.
Oh
of
yeah,
where
I
the
grilled the
problems
mess
start,
out of her.
right?
Like, I was like, first of all, did you buy your own home? Because you got to live with these 3 children somewhere. Where are you living
Right.
now? You know, how did you send them to school? Because you got to pay for school. That's not going to change. You know, like how did you do all these things? And she's like, yep, we worked on it. We thought about this. They leveraged the, you know, the 529K plans for their children. So they had things in order for this to work. And this wasn't just a like, oh, let's try it. There was definitely some methodical thought of probably about when they were in middle school and then moving towards this. And it was really just a interesting concept that how she just explained it. It was very simplistic how she explained it, but I'm like, I know it's not that simplistic to execute because there had to be that back and you had to do so much to get to that point. And I just thought, wow, again, how people leveraging different things. So they were like, you know, buying a house here or making the children go here, you know, not buying vehicles or renting vehicles out to college students. Like there was all these things of saying leveraging liabilities. And I thought how interesting that, you know, that phraseology came in, but they were doing things with the thought of doing something else with it. Like they know, like, yeah, right now I got to take that hit, but it's going to pay off at some other point.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that this is where we talk about, so Camari talks about, you know, being labeled as the angry Black man, right? And I've said that, and we said this in this, the first conversation we had, Talisha, that out of emotion comes change. So the emotion you have may not be anger right now. It may be frustration. It may be curiosity. It may be determination. Like I'm determined to figure out how this family was able to do this. They got 3 kids, and the truth is there are a whole lot of parents who are so determined to get their kids a scholarship that they work with their kids, they work with coaches, they scour also, they pretend to be Native American when I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me backtrack that.
Rewind.
You don't even have to
Just a little bit rewind.
You just need to be, like I said, it's methodical. And I think that's where
It is
miss.
methodical.
You can't just decide one day, like, hey, this seems like a good idea. Let me just throw something. It's very much consistent diligence that goes into doing any of these, finding scholarships.
Yes.
But there's a whole host of stuff out there, finding these properties, where to find them, how does that live go, you know, with your child, all of those things. Like they were saying about buying used cars from Hertz. And again, I didn't know that you could buy the used cars from these places. And now they're getting them for dirt cheap because the rental industry has taken a hit. Somebody just bought 5 cars. And now it's like selling them. Yeah, he's now selling them or making them those used like the zip cars. But he himself is now the purchaser. So now he has his own little thing. He's not a zip car in that sense. He's just utilizing that service. And now he's also giving Uber and Lyft drivers another vehicle to use. So now they rent it from him. So now he paid like just, you know, pennies on the dollar for these cars and now has this. And he's like, again, college students don't want a car, but they need access to one. Right. So now that's the service he's offering on the campus. And
I think that what we're talking about here is ingenuity. So let's say there's someone here tonight who has a 13-year-old, because you don't want to wait. The mistake that I made was waiting until I was 18 and 3 months from entering college to find scholarships. Like the time to do it is, okay, you're 13 years old. Let's see what scholarships that are out there that have been out for 10 years, probably be out for another 10, 20 years. What are they looking for? Oh, they're looking for somebody who's really great with debate. They've done this, that, the third. Well, now this is what our counterparts do. They mold their children to fit into these programs, you know? They network with the right people, et cetera, you know? So we got a little peek into the scandal that happened, but there's a lot of legal ways to do this. And it's not, you know, dirty, slimy or anything like that, but it's okay, here are, you know, the 12 scholarships that my child could qualify for, whether your child is good at math or they're good at art, or they want to do game design, etc. I know with art, sometimes they have to create a portfolio. Well, what are you preparing them to do so that when it comes time for them to create that portfolio and give that interview, they knock it so far out of the park? But you got to groom
Well,
your
it takes a
kids
long
like that.
time. I mean, that's where, again, my daughter is an art major. She's a visual art student. She's had a portfolio since she's been in 9th grade.
Mhm.
That thing has to have, and they want to see that growth over that time.
Right.
I'm saying? You just can't come up and be like, oh, let's see. They want 20 to 25 pieces. Some of them complete, some of them incomplete. They want you to tell the story of why and how, all of those things. And again, esports. Being an esports, she's, 18, she'll be 18 in 2 weeks. And, being a female, Black, 5 foot, gymnast. There's all these things that I have to literally put in an algorithm to make what is I could do with my child. That's all those things. And we've been doing this since she's been in 9th grade. This didn't just again come. We've been working on this for a very long time. She's a 15-year veteran in gymnastics. That's a long time to dedicate to something. And again, you got to figure out how that works, because that can't be leveraged, but a very small window of leveraging. And these are the things that have to work into it. And I always think like that group that I'm in, when they talk about all the things, like some of them like don't have anything else going on. Like they literally are like, we search for scholarships on Sundays. We do it from 9 to 12. And then we do it on like, it's a schedule, it's regimented. I'm like, yeah, I don't have that much time. Wow. So I'm like, I understand that I'm going to have to take that hit, because I can't allocate that, but I do the things that I can do leading up to that. But some of these is like a full-time scholarship drive is what I call it. They are
imagine a service behind that.
Well, there are people who make money with that.
Wow.
Yeah, they do. They find them, and the people who do your, help you with your, essays, the people who help you with your interviews now that, if you want to do the SAT this way, there's like a whole business.
It's a whole industry.
Yeah. And it's just amazing. But again, I didn't think of the other things, like once you get them there, what also goes on, because now they've created all these things for these children, like I said, what if they couldn't move? Like now the pandemic, some of them couldn't live where they wanted to live, but they weren't allowed to go back home either. So now people were literally purchasing units and hotels and basically holding them, like basically giving them rent. So they were allowing them to use, hotels in them. They were like, okay, we pay a portion, they pay a portion, and they're just making a profit off of students who can't go home. You would have never thought about that because that wasn't an option before, and you don't really want to take advantage of poor students either. But these were things that just really came up because they had to pivot and figure out what was going to happen. And again, colleges are going to be very much hit with the same predicament of how now we can't offer the college experience. So what are you going to pay that sticker price for? Nobody was paying it before, and they're certainly not going to pay it now. Right. So I think this is the same thing with our economics personally and financially. We have to figure out what we're doing, where do we want to go, and how do we leverage the things that, like I said, do we take that initial hit to know that it's going to pay off, or how do we maneuver through those kind of aspects and those assets?
So number one, Claude, I see you here in the chat. First of all, Claude says at least 20 billion of college scholarship money is unclaimed annually.
Wow.
Number two thing he said is most people apply for less than 10 scholarships. I know that was me. I wasn't even, so I'll admit it was the 90s, right? Before I wasn't even sure where to go. Like I was flying, my parents couldn't help me, now you do have more resources. But if part of the strategy is you need to apply for 30 scholarships in order to get 2, at least if I know that, I can strategize more appropriately. So Claude, if you are an expert in this, we'd love to interview you. We'll do a members only interview and dig into this a little bit more. Email me info@the10kproject.com. If not, even if you are, that's fine. I also have a client as well who specifically worked with Black children, more so from impoverished areas, even though I'm sure she works with all children. And she helped them figure out what to major in and then figure out what scholarship, no, not scholarship. She would help them go to school for free is what she would do. So I'm going to look around for her information. I forgot her name, but I'm going to look around for that too. But let's jump into people who may not have kids or, their kids are grown or whatever. One of the other things that Camari talks about, so the topic tonight is building wealth is less complicated than you think. Number one, I think that it's simple things you can do, but it's not easy. And that's one of the things that Talisha has pointed out. And I do think that, it's simple, but it's not easy. So that's one of the things that we have to get our head around is you're going to have to be focused on this, like you're focused on saying, staying in that size 8, or you're focused on your diet and exercise, or you're focused on your church. Like this is just going to have to be something that you focus on. Another thing that Camari mentions is we've got to be willing to talk about money. We have to be willing with our family. If you're considering getting married to somebody, what's your credit score, what's your balance sheet, how much money
That's
do you
even
have
before you're considering marriage. I mean, before you start catching feelings, you need to have those conversations. I mean, you really do. It's not the first date conversation, but it's probably date number 5. I mean, to talk about credit and responsibility and habits and all of those things. I mean, because I still feel like it does go back to the philosophy of how we buy, right? I can remember growing up and, people had the best new sneakers. I mean, even now we see them standing online for the best hot new sneakers that come out. And those are what,
or
$300,
the iPhone.
$500 sneakers sometimes. The iPhones, those dollars can be used for things that are way more strategic to get you to building the wealth, instead of acquiring all of these things that only depreciate. They don't appreciate. And so in relationships, I think those are early conversations. It's nothing worse than to fall in love with somebody who doesn't have much and all you got is love. That's real nice, but it's not going to build wealth.
Yeah. And the number one
Just
reason
love.
people get divorced is because of money, right? So, and fellas, I'm going to put you a little bit out there. So men are supposed to be natural leaders of the house, right? In traditional households. I, as a woman, can't follow you if you don't have financial IQ.
Absolutely.
If you don't know the difference between an asset and a liability, if you don't know if we're owning this home, not only is this a good interest rate, but what are the other terms? What's the prepayment, penalty, things like that. I think it is important that everybody within the house and within the household, and especially the kids, have financial IQ. So one of the things that Camari talks about is the fact that we need to start talking about money more. It doesn't mean we talk about, how much money we have on the gram and we lay out the hundreds of dollars all over the place. That's not what I'm talking about at all. But one of the things that's going to happen in the family bank / family wealth challenge is we're bringing on an accountant named Florice to teach us how to read our financial statements as a family. Your family is a business, and your family has financial statements. Your families have a profit and loss statement or an income statement, and it has a balance sheet. And if you don't know what that means, then, this is some of the education that we're going to be doing, just like your business does as well. So your family is a business. Talisha, do you have anything else to add about
I would say that even as an individual, you have to really think of yourself as a business. And I think that is the truest mindset change. It's not just about you and what you're doing today. Money is something that definitely has to be thought about in order to accrue. It has to be utilized and plotted upon to get it, to sustain it, and to grow it. So you just can't, I said, you can't come across this idea like, hey, today I think I'm going to try this saving thing. It's a methodical thing that you really need to put in place. And if you think of yourself as an entity that has to grow, you force yourself. It's not just, I'm not trying to get to the next paycheck. I have to get to the next 5 years. If I was a sustainable business, who would actually say this is a good idea? Would you want your books run like this? Probably not. You wouldn't even invest in a business like that. So don't treat yourself that way. So you really have to think about who and what you are. And I think if we start to operate as a business, we get to choose those things, I think, a little differently. So sneakers are great, but are they, how does that impact my bottom
How does it
line?
impact the future? Right.
Yeah, like how does that have, on my balance sheet, what does that look like? And what does that do in my depreciation? And again, it's like,
Right.
this is my P&L statement as a business. How does that work? And as for coupling, that is a true thing. How do you want to accumulate? Because a lot of people want to accumulate wealth, but they're not willing to work at it. So just because you have that same, like, yeah, I want to be a millionaire, what are you willing to do to be a millionaire is the question. Because some people may rob a bank. Some people may hope and pray and, play the lottery every day. That's not the same thing. And you really have to figure all those things out in order to truly come up. And I think that's a wealth plan. You can't just decide. It's like you make that decision and then you have the steps that you need to actually execute upon.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you say is acquire the knowledge and then have the discipline to implement the plan.
Yeah, you got to. It's just like anything else. You're not going to get it just because you want it. It's nice that you want it, but it doesn't come that way. Not that anything I've known just happens because I want it.
Yeah.
Eric, anything else to add?
No, I was reading Carla's comment in there. She put stuff accumulation. She mentioned that and how, it's basically, she said, it's just basically fronting just for other people. And I think that's a really deep comment in a lot of ways. And the reason why I say that is you always look at the things that you value. And, I think that for all of us as human beings, we evolve over time. When we're younger, we have different values. And so as we get older, we begin to see things from a different vantage point, from a different perspective that we didn't have before. So we begin to value things. And maybe when we were younger, maybe we just didn't have that. We just maybe didn't see life that way. And I just think about that, now of even transferring that to younger children where they, and listen, this is be frank. Okay, kids are always, especially when they're younger, they're always going to be their friends, their peer group are one of the most influential people in their lives are their peers. So they're always going to have that level as they're growing as young people of being able to, get more self-mastery and that sort of thing. But I do think that is important of adding that into them, that they start seeing value in long-term investments, wealth building, that sort of thing. And they may not be just like little robots who are walking around in, pin suits and just putting all their money in, but if they can incorporate that into their mindsets and then grow in that way, I do think that later on, it will really,
it's a muscle.
It will really pay off. So yes, go. So it's okay if you go buy your sneakers. Nevertheless, you need to put X amount of dollars away.
It's really about what you want and how you want to get it. There's nothing wrong with wanting things. That's the reason that you accumulate the wealth, because you want whatever it is you want. But it has to either have a benefit analysis that has to be done. My daughter wanted a very strong computer. She's a gamer. She needed a high performance computer that required us to spend lots and lots of money. I was like, okay, we have to build it. So now you got to give me your time. I'm going to show you how much money that is. And now this is what you're going to have to do. And what do you need to do? You need to be revenue generating within the first 2 months. Once I give you this computer, I need you to be revenue generating. I didn't give her an amount, but she's definitely got a job on Twitch. And so she is revenue generating. She made, it was just the conversation. I think that's where we, I'm like, yeah, your $20 you can keep and your whole $17.32 after they took your tax, which she was very upset about. That the tax kind of hurt her feelings. I was like, oh, sweetheart, work it out. But these are the conversations that you have, that there has to be equity. There has to be an exchange, that things come at a cost. It's not just you just get it because, and I think that sets a mindset that really will roll into everything that you do from that point forward.
Yeah, back to Carla's point though about fronting. I mean, I think it's really, it's important, because if we didn't put so much weight on the things, people, first of all, wouldn't have to front. And then the ones that did, it wouldn't render the outcome they're looking for. So I have a friend who's in sales, and he pays an $800 a month car note. His logic behind it is, and I think $800, absolutely, it's like 2.5 more than my car note. So I thought that was ridiculous. But his logic is, and his philosophy is, he's a salesperson. So people have to see money when they see him. So it doesn't matter that he's going in debt so that other people see this money when they see him so he can sell them whatever he's selling. It just is, we're putting all of this weight on the things that don't have any value.
Mhm.
That car doesn't mean anything, you know, at the end of the day. It's not worth it. What is it? 20% it depreciates what, after 15 days off the lot or something like that. So almost immediately vehicles depreciate. And I think we just have to be careful at what cost fronting is really mean. You know, what
does he
means to
sell,
us.
Tawana, though? What does he sell?
He sells insurance.
Oh, yeah. So if he were selling luxury goods or something like that, so Claude, I see your answer there, or your question there about the ROI. If he were selling something like luxury boats or something like that, that actually would make sense, because he would be hobnobbing with, you know, wealthy people who would expect to see that. But depending on, you know, the types of insurance, yeah. So
He makes a
Claude
good
does
living,
have
but
a question
he is
here about what
wasting
was the
money on
original.
an $800 vehicle.
I'm sorry.
I said he makes a decent wage, but
Mm-hmm.
that is a waste it's a waste. It's one of those things where are we that shallow that someone drives up in a nice car and all of a sudden we think whatever product they're selling automatically now has more value because they're in this vehicle. I think that's the mindset we have to look at within ourselves to see, are we that gullible? Because most of what we see in the flash is not real. The cars are leased, right? They're not theirs, right? Some of nowadays you can buy nice clothes and rent them for one time and send them back. So even that's not real anymore.
I'd say everything is a facade, and I think that's where we're coming to. If you don't recognize that, then you're kind of feeding into the system. Those kind of things don't matter. You know, like I said, anything on the gram, that's a filter. So we, even before that, you know, like I said, in the modeling industry in the 80s, we had silk screens. So this has been going on for a long, long time. We've always faked the funk. I've taken pictures where you wouldn't even know there's a person behind me. There's duct tape on me. I look spectacular in the dark. I'm like, get this thing off of me right now. Like, just take the picture. Just take the picture. It's all for that moment. And as I said, does that really imbue you? That's where you have to have, if you have a certain goal, you wouldn't be swayed by those kind of things. It's like, does this impact what I want to do? Yes or no? You won't have to worry about the messenger, because you'll just know what it is and how it affects you. And I think that's where we're moving along. We're trying to relate instead of actually just doing what we need to do for ourselves. And so that's where, again, you have to be very clear about what your goal orientation is and how you're going to get there. And just use the individuals as they come to you. Can you help me? Can you get this price cheaper? Can I get better insurance? Or whatever it is, but you have to be clear. Does it support you or does it take you further from your goal? And that's the question that you have to ask.
I think we're underestimating, though, is in the community, the power of the flash. So
I
the
think
flash,
it's real.
well, okay.
I
So
I think that's what we're saying. But
I'd like to, yeah, if I can finish. So when it comes to people selling us, right? When it comes to people selling us, we have to see through the flash. When it comes to us selling people, though, sometimes people do have the flash in order to get to whatever goal they're trying to get to. So let's take a rapper, for example, right? I know, but let's do it. If you saw a poor looking rapper, the branding is off.
No,
I don't agree.
Disagree. Yeah.
I disagree as well.
Okay, name one poor rapper.
I can name
one poor looking rapper that is
I wouldn't say poor. They're not flashy. Let's make very clear. They're not poor, because you know, we just had this lovely discussion about what's his face that has the cap that has the 3 on it, and he made $6 million off of this stupid cap for his children. There, yeah, like I said, and the ones that indie, you know, they have their whole indie career. They're making tons of money. And they're just being themselves. And I think that's the click. I think now people know that clickbait exists. And there is a modicum of like, I don't need to see the flashy thing. And more importantly, when I see it, it's not selling me anything. And I definitely can see, even in children, because they're used to it. they're able to assess like, oh yeah, that's a filter. That's their lingo for everything. Like they know that that's not real. And so when they do, they need to see authenticity. And sometimes authenticity doesn't look like flash. It looks like, did you say what I want? Did you make it on a little Casio keyboard? They like that better than they like, like, oh, he was in the studio with chillin' with P. Diddy. They don't even know who P. Diddy is at this point. So I think we have different generations that are impacted by what they see, because again, we're not visual natives to some of these platforms where the children are, and they're able to easily assess what's fronting, and it doesn't matter to them because they want what they want. They're very clear about that. They want the iPhone or they want the Android. Nobody's really going to shift them from that. You can't sell children right now. You have to give them a value-added service, and they're getting, that's what I'm saying, our consumerism is smarter now, because it's all about them. It's not about like the closeness of like, I don't give a damn what you do, but is this going to serve me? Is this phone going to do what I need it to do? Yeah. Okay. And that's what they want and crave. So I think there's our generation, I would say like Gen Xers are very much suspect, because we lived in that where you had to present well. You had to show that you were, you made it. We moved on up with the Jeffersons. We had to make it seen. They don't give a damn. They just don't, because they're just like, I don't care where you live.
And even then, we knew we had a good inkling what was real and what wasn't real, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had a good inkling even then that the gold chain, either it wasn't yours or that's where you spent all your advance money on, that one chain, and right? Poor baby, just that one chain is all you got, which is why you wear it in all the videos, just that one chain. So I don't agree. What it shows is the fiscal irresponsibility. Again, if we buy into that being the flash as being this thing that they can sell us on, we need to reassess what makes us tick. To Talicia's point, we're not looking at ourselves as businesses, and we're not then looking at these people that we allow to enter our lives, either from a relationship standpoint or even from a business standpoint. I don't know that I want to do business with someone who's flashy, because to me, it's irresponsible. Unless you truly are a multi-millionaire, then that's not considered flash, right? That's just the gold chain of the day, right? If you truly got all that money, that's different. I'm talking about people who I know are not sitting on stacks upon stacks, and they're walking around the world as if they do. And if they just stop buying above their means, they could have a couple of stacks, right? If they bought the 2,000 square foot house instead of the 7,000 square foot house, because it's just two of y'all, you could maybe have some more money to invest or to save or to leave to the kids or whatever the case may be. We just have to look at how we spend this money differently, because we didn't get the advantage of having it already in the generations for us, right? So we're starting this. We're talking about, your question was, why is building wealth so complicated? Well, it's so complicated because we don't know how to do it, right? It might be simple, but it's hard. It's hard.
Is it that we don't know how to do it?
We still don't have tips on how to do it. How do we do it?
Is it that we don't know how to do it, or is it that we're not applying the knowledge?
I think it could be a combination. I think most people don't know. If you did another poll, most people probably wouldn't know. And then those of us who might know a little may not feel like we have the resources. I remember I used to think I don't have enough money to invest. I didn't know that even a little bit mattered. Right? Even if I could just invest a little bit, that's a start. I didn't know that. I thought I had to be rich too. I thought only rich people invested. So I spent my entire 20s not investing. Yeah, I put money in my 401k, but that was it. So I think it's a combination of both. We're all in different places, right? We have to meet people where they are, because we're all in different stages of our financial journey even.
So I'm going to do a couple of more things within Camari's article, and then we're about to go. I know someone said they felt like tonight's conversation was a bit random, and this is just the flow of the conversation as well. So one of the things that Camari talks about here is us destroying our money myths. And he mentions what people misquote all the time is money is the root of all evil. And the Bible verse actually says the love of money is the root of all evil. The Bible doesn't say, the Bible, there was oh my gosh, now I should have looked this up before I came on here. But sometimes in some of our churches, they talk about Jesus overturning the tables because he was so upset that people were selling in the church. You know, the truth is he was upset because people were taking advantage of others in the church. And I know that this is a lot more old school. This is like when I was growing up. These were the types of discussions that were had in the church. And one of the things that we're going to is Thanksgiving dinner with some of our older parents, you know, or grandparents. And I think that this is something we need to be aware of, this destroying some of the money myths that are in the Black community. You know, another money myth is there's not enough, you know, or we're at a disadvantage just because we're Black. You know, there are advantages that we have because of our race as well. So I'm going to open it up. Oh, thank you, Claude. 1 Timothy 6:10. Yeah. So I do think that one of the things we need to do is kind of look at, what do we really think about money? What does our family really think about money? Whether it's a spouse, whether it's kids, parents, etc. Does your grandmother not believe in a will, for example? Because there are a whole lot of grandmothers out there who are sitting on houses that are going to have to go through probate and all of this because they don't believe in a will. And they don't believe in estate planning and all of that.
Right.
So when we talk about building wealth is less complicated than you think, I think that this is some of the things that need to be considered as well, is not only the mindset of us, when we talk about generational wealth, the mindset of, you know, Big Mama who has the 4 acres in South Carolina and what's going to happen to that. So I'll open that up as well.
No, you're great. You're right. You hit that right on the, I got nothing else to add to that. You're right. I mean, and the generations below Big Mama need to educate, you know, because even Big Mamas of the world can be educated. We've got to sit them down and maybe, you know, because these days you can get the will, right, a template on LegalZoom, right? But you don't have to have the lawyer come in. And because again, I always feel like some of the things that are simple, I used to think they were this big thing, right? When you hear will, you think, well, only people with money have a will. I got nothing, right? I don't have much. Whatever I have, my son will get it. But you do need the planning part, that structured part, to help you through. And I think that's where they need their children and their grandchildren even to say, okay, Big Mama, we've got to get some structure to this. We know you have this asset, this house. What do you want to happen to it? And just pull down a $30 LegalZoom document and notarize it. I mean, it doesn't have to be complicated. I think that's the first thing to explain to Big Mama is these are not difficult things. We don't have to have a stranger in the house. You don't have to tell them all your business, because those are the things Big Mama doesn't want to do, right? That's why she hasn't done it. Nobody should be in her business, right? And nobody should be in her house. They're a stranger. So if we make it easy for her and explain the importance, then maybe it'll be a lot easier to go through.
Yeah.
You know.
And sometimes Big Mama will do it for you. You know, if you're her favorite relative, you like, look, I love you so much. This will help me when the time comes. Would you please do it for me? Sometimes you got to psychoanalyze and outmaneuver, you know. So I will say that my grandmother actually was the preparer. She prepared her death, her burial, what she was going to wear, all of that. And that's actually becoming a lot more popular. And then, you know, my mom wanted to do the same thing. As the daughter, I kind of was like, oh, I don't know. So sometimes we get a little cringy with it as well, you know, thinking about that. And I do think that it's something that, you know, it's something you're going to have to grapple with as an emotion. I have one more thing here from Camari's article. And it's about creating investment clubs and groups with family and friends. Number one thing I'm going to say about this is building wealth is a team sport. it doesn't necessarily mean you have to put your money in an investment club with your other family members or your other friends. You all could just sit and talk about, for example, some of the stock that's out there and what's happening with it. And someone shares a piece of information with you and you share a piece of information with them, and you just go into your own TD Ameritrade account or whatever account and purchase if you choose to do that. But I do think that we talked earlier about money in the overall sense and different strategies, but being able to share like specific stocks, specific real estate strategies, things like that in small groups, and not just with other Black people as well. At one point, I considered going to an investment club with, other people and just putting in my $25 a month and just seeing what they were investing in and what were their conversations. And they were meeting at the public library, a couple of times a month. I don't know if they're doing these things online now, but you get to hear different things from different people, and it exposes you. So I will open it up for final comments from all of you, if you have something to say about either one of the things that I just said as well.
No, before you said that, I wrote down group economics,
Mhm.
and that's exactly what you talked about. I mean, it's real. We need to leverage each other. We don't have to do it alone. That's the other myth, right? I don't know if that was on Camari's list, but we don't have to do it alone, right? It doesn't have to be this secret thing. Families are purposely living together, not out of necessity, but because it is strategic. They are doing it strategically to get both family units out of debt, right? And then they can go off on their merry way and buy their own houses or whatever. But we have to utilize each other. My sister and I talked about doing it. Then we realized that probably wasn't good for our relationship. But we like each other way too much to live with each other. But it's something you may have to make a sacrifice in some situations, because it does help. Right? When we band together in whatever way, investment club, living together. There was a story in a group a couple of years ago, a young woman, her and her brother were able to come together with their families. They paid off something like, I don't want to get the number wrong, but it was something like $50,000 in 6 months of debt, because they came together as a family unit. And they even did things like, this month, we pay the minimum of all of our bills. It was a brother and sister, they lived together. We pay the minimum of all of our bills, but then 1 month, Cherie, maybe we triple up on one of yours. And then next month, we pay the minimum on all of them, and we triple up on one of mine. At the end of this 6-month period, they had paid off like 50 grand of debt. I mean, just amazing. Like something just that strategic that they did. It wasn't about necessity. It was about strategy. And it worked. And then, then they were able to go and do whatever they wanted to. And in this situation, they decided to stay living together at the end of the 6 months, even though they were both now debt free. But those are the kind of things, when Talisha says, look at yourself as a business and plan and all of that, that all falls under that same umbrella.
Yeah, that's an amazing aspect. I always am frustrated when I see GoFundMe campaigns to bury somebody. Oh. That's the quintessential failure of finances right there, because that's core to your family. Like we know we're not going to live forever. You know this. So this is why planning is so very important, and all that comes with that, because that's a hard way to go when you're already in a stress and a horrible situation, to have to bury somebody but still can't pay and afford, and people will take horrible advantage of you. But that's where we need that mindset, because I know in my family, they're very old Southern people, and they don't want to talk about their death. If you talk about their death, you're putting one foot in the grave for them. That's how they talk to you. So it's like when you talk about insurance, they're like, don't put me in the grave. It's like, I'm not putting you in the grave, but you're going to die, and we need to know what to do with you. Like, what do you want to do with yourself, your property? And it's a very difficult conversation, specifically with people who are in their 80s and 90s, and some of them were in their hundreds. Having a hard conversation. It was just one of those things. And that goes to like liability. It's like, I have to be able to do this for you, or this actually turns into a family problem. It's no longer just you, because it turns into a legal battle. And depending on, what happens, it can actually drag out even further and further. So those are those kind of things where the practicality is that we're mortal. We have to do with these kind of things. And it's best that you, again, have a say and be proactive. And that's, again, even if you're not thinking of yourself as a business, think about your family. Think about who is going to have to deal with your debt when you die or become.
So a couple more things. Number one is Camari did have about the families, different generations of families living together under the same house. I did in Zoom, I did put the link to Camari's article. I also put the link to Freeman Capital in here. Calvin Williams owns that. He has a plan for single people, but also for families that want to get together and put together a wealth plan. So he is a friend of the 10K project. And if you say, right now, hey, I want to get my family on the same page, sometimes just having someone come and just say, here are some of the things you want to think about is so important to us and can be life-changing. The final thing that I will say is I am communicating with a therapist right now to come just before Thanksgiving to talk with us. It'll be members only, to talk with us about how to have these difficult money conversations with our elderly, with our kids. More so it's like with our elderly or our siblings is really the big thing. I am working on that. I have a date in mind, just trying to figure out if she can do it. Another person we're bringing on, I'm talking to her later on this week, is an estate planning attorney and a elder care attorney to, again, give you a little bit more tools. Both of these will be members only. So if you're not a member, that's the reason to join. But this is where the real strategy comes in place. So, and I'm sorry, Eric, one more thing. Joseph's is asking, did you find the person about putting together products at Publix, Walmart, and Target? I think you're talking about Dr. Keisha's person who can help you get products on the retail shelves. We are still talking with him about when he is able to come on. So if not, then we have a couple of other resources that we're going to be looking at talking to. So Eric, you have the final word for tonight.
Oh, and you know what? I'm just going to say, listen, I think this is an amazing time to be alive. There are some great things that are happening. Yes, we see some things that are happening that are not so good, but there are some great things that are happening, especially when we start talking about wealth building. Some of the application stations, and I've talked about this multiple times with, digital assets, and you look at some of the apps like Robinhood and Webull, and there are some great tools that we have at our disposal, for everyone to be able to use that, could really be utilized to make up a lot of ground for people financially. So I just want to put that out there for people to go into, self-study. It's one of the best things I think you could possibly do is, real self-directed learning when it comes down to it. And yeah, that's it.
All righty then. Well, we want to thank you so much for participating tonight. If you're new, welcome. If you are one of our people who are with us every week, we want to thank you as well. We hope you picked up a few things tonight that you are able to implement, because that was the point of tonight, was to talk about a few things that you can easily implement. We have more people coming to give you more strategy around this as well. And thanks again. Hope everyone has a great evening.